Hi, Dr. Sumi Singh. It's so nice to see you and so wonderful to have you on this video cast. I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience today. You're doing something incredibly important, advising UNICEF on the progress of girls in India and around the world. So tell us about yourself and the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vicky, for giving me this opportunity. This is epic for me to come out and talk about something that I feel so passionate about. And my background is in artificial intelligence. I have a doctorate in computer science, and I've dabbled into multiple industries, various roles, and now kind of feel settled in my current position where I have my own company that advises board members and not for profit. And some of them happen to be that everybody knows, like UNICEF, and where the impact is like multi-dimensional, I must say. It just goes to a totally different, level. And I'm really excited to talk about that.
Perfect. Let's hear more about it. Tell us about the problem you're advising on, UNICEF.
Yes, absolutely. So UNICEF calls the current generation the generation AI. And by current generation, we mean kids born after 2000, this millennium. And the reason why they emphasize on using that phrase is because knowingly or unknowingly, we are using technology all the time in some form, and the kids have grown with the technology in their hands. So it's not generation laptop or mobile, but it's generation AI. And their interaction with AI will shape the future of the world. And UNICEF is an advocacy forum where they actually help governments and other organizations to help kids, or think about the future, think about kids before thinking about today, think about the future. And my role over there is to use AI, especially in a very impoverished pocket of rural India, extremely poor. And how can we use AI to actually reduce the digital divide? And there are a bunch of reasons why UNICEF is focusing on digital divide, and one of it is the fact that 65% of kids entering elementary school across the world in in 2023 wouldn't be doing the same job as we are doing. So those jobs will be different, their livelihood will be different, their sense of belonging will be different than what we see. And unfortunately, to be ready for that change or difference, you have to have access to the technology that is out there. And that's not true for almost 50% of the population, specifically, adolescent girls who face extreme bias against they using technology. So my goal is to help raise awareness and help advocate for use of, like, AI for good, for
That's
this
great.
purpose, to bridge digital divide.
More about this bias, right? Because sometimes people, if they don't live in that life, it's hard for them to understand what that bias might be.
That's true. Yeah, that's 100% true. It's very difficult to actually point out that, hey, you have a bias towards this. That requires a different level of effort, and there are tools to help people understand that. But um, but you know what, I'm trying to focus more on the positive side, that we can make a change by doing certain things in a certain way, rather than, like, pointing out there's a problem. Let's look for a solution.
And what do you think that solution is?
So, oh gosh, that. This is my take. This is not UNICEF. I'm talking totally
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. Just
on
from
my
the,
behalf over
yeah.
here. But so the, there are three things, three biggest challenge. And there are numerous others, but there are three biggest. If you leave poverty out,
Mhm.
that restricts the access. One is safety, security, privacy of a female, child. The second one is culturally appropriate content, and the third is engagement. And I like to use the term cerebral equity, and the lack of these three things actually reduces that cerebral equity that girls have in today's time. It's not about just going to school and learning to read and write, but it's about having the power to find information, to use it, and to be able to make decisions based on the right information is missing. So digital divide leads to lack of cerebral equity. And I feel if we focus on these three things, we can actually, create that balance.
And that makes perfect sense. So kind of meet people where they're at, right? In the end. And what are some of the ways that you feel generative AI can help us with that?
Absolutely. So it is. So one of the examples that I really like to present is there is a lot of talk about how about we use AI tutors, right? AI tutors are almost like chatbot, but they may have uh, s- uh, some voice or some image, or it's maybe a multimodal process. But if we just take the chatbot part of it, making chatbots is something which is great right now. It's in English, and if you expect an English speaker to interact with chatbot in a certain way, they can probably do very well. But we're talking about girls in India.
Mhm.
They don't speak English. Most of them don't even speak Hindi, which is the most common prominent language of spoken in the country. We it's a very diverse country. We speak a lot of languages. How do you expect them to interact with a chatbot that doesn't speak their language? So, of course, we have to come down to the language acceptance. Second, we have to come down to the fact that a chatbot is very one dimensional. If you add, it makes it a little bit more interesting, exciting, or adds emotions and makes the tutor a little bit more real time. Would be adding emojis or gifs or some extra um extra modality out there.
And
And
relate to them in the language of their origin, right? Whatever that origin is.
yes, yes. And generative AI can definitely help doing that. I actually demonstrated that if you are trying to help a 17-year-old understand linear algebra in their language, they understand it better than you know in terms of x's and y's. So even something as complicated as linear algebra from a point of view of a 17-year-old is simpler when presented in their own language. And there is so much great content, and if they can be translated, transliterated in the right way. There's another example. There is a Udemy course in Bhasha. I'm sure I'm butchering this, but this is for Indonesian native language speaker. Please excuse me if I didn't get the uh, accent or the term right. But there is this person who created artificial intelligence course in the native language, transliterated in their native script.
Amazing.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. It does so much for access. 100%.
So much for access and acceptance, the fact that, okay, I can learn.
Yeah.
That's,
I can tell you my personal experience. So I immigrated from Uzbekistan when I was 11 and I was studying science here in the United States. And science was the hardest topic for me because it took me probably three times the amount of time to learn it. Because first I had to get the science book, then I had to translate using a dictionary, right? Because nothing was online at the time, into my language that I understood was at the time was Russian. Then understanding the problem, I had to figure out what the answer is, and then I had to translate it back so I could write something in English to submit to my teacher. So that problem of translation where it would take me maybe 5 minutes in my native language took me maybe an hour
yes,
between all these steps. And so I can completely understand how like generative AI, if we can, because this is what it's great at, right, is translation. That's what it transformers, that's the foundation of language. And so by creating equity in the language, the native language of the speaker, you're essentially promoting them to learn at a greater speed in context that's familiar to them and potentially accelerate their learning, right? At that point.
absolutely, 100%. Um, and the other thing, of course, is the engagement part that I feel is taken in a very different way. Like, we say mobile's an engagement machine, but whenever we talk about it, there is a negative connotation to it. And engagement could be with respect to cognitive support engagement. A student may be engaged more if they are having fun learning.
Right.
And you can actually define fun with respect to different contexts, both culturally as well as age appropriate fun when it comes to generative AI. And I mean, if they can explain uh, quantum mechanics in terms of 5 year old,
Right.
yes, they can. I mean, there is. Oh, the possibilities are limitless. It's just, bound by your own imagination right now.
It is. And then you could reward people, right, in the things that are valuable in that culture. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, which kind of perpetuates the fun and the learning and everything else.
Yes,
So, tell me about some of the maybe applications or something that is UNICEF responsible for giving out, like devices, building the content, like where's the impact from, I can just imagine a little girl in a rural village, she might have not seen an iPad before, right? As an example, like how do we engage them in a way that's both interesting and familiar at the same time?
absolutely. So UNICEF had their startup program. I think they awarded quite a sum of fund for different types of startups across different, parts of the world. But they're advocacy organization, so they do give funds to NGOs, or that is non-government organizations, funds to government organizations, and they also provide framework and guidance. So and then they monitor and they support in whatever way that it needs to be supported. Like, they come together with maybe Malala Fund. In this case, they are, I think, working really closely with Malala funds. And I again, um, some of it is just,
Sure.
me just know reading more about it. Then um, Gates, Melinda and Bill Gates,
Yeah,
their
foundation.
fund. So their organization and a lot of other different such organizations that work at that ground level.
Sure.
But yeah, UNICEF mostly does advocacy. So we are not working on an application per se. It's more, trying to actually identify the right cohort What are the different types of experiments are we going to set up? How do we monitor progress?
Mm.
What happens? How do you identify failure, and what do you do if there is a chance of failure, and how do you preempt it? Things like that. So we are more, or my role is as an advisor, help them walk through all these pieces. One of the biggest challenge I face is, oh my gosh, like AI is going to kill everybody.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. I've
right,
heard this like so many times. I'm like, okay, are we talking about Terminator here?
right.
What are we talking about? Where are you guys getting all that information from?
Yeah, it's scary, right? Because it's something new and it's something not everybody knows about, so it's easy to be afraid.
So you know what? Luckily, I haven't heard anybody from UNICEF. In fact, they're very excited.
Yeah.
But when you are taking this concept, this amazing framework that can actually transform the the lives of so many little girls out there,
Yeah.
but then people out there is like, no, AI is going to kill us. So there's such a huge cultural pushback, that you have the resistance that you have to overcome through advocacy, through education, and through like constantly giving them the right information, and peeling off the all the misinformation that is filled out there.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that in the past with like even technology in business. When new technology comes out, people are very resistant because they're worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about how the process is going to change, what that means for them. And so before you can even integrate the new technology, it's often you spend so many hours just convincing them that this is not something to be afraid of. It's going to make their life better. And they still don't believe you. They're very hesitant, right, to go into it.
Yeah, I think it's a technical inertia that we have. We just like spend so much time learning Excel. Now you want us to learn something new, a
Right.
database? I don't want to do that.
It's very true. It's human. It's incredibly human. I think the work you're doing is just incredible because girls and just women in general and technology is the passion of mine. I've been in technology myself over 25 years and I've seen it transform. And I think it is the ultimate equalizer, right, between genders, if you think about it that way, because both women and men can use the tools equally, right? And the question is, how do we train everyone to use them in the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think before when we were talking, I used that term where I say, how about we create technology with girls, not for girls? We have to overcome that. You're not saving them because you are trying to help them out. You have to create with them so that they can feel part of it. You learn from them. It's almost like how we do co-design in product.
Yeah.
You work with the stakeholders and figure out what you really need. And marketing, you do the same thing. You go out and find your customer and work backwards. We need to do the same with these little girls out there who are, some of them are so bright. Hey, I was one of them. Who are just amazing if given the right opportunity.
Yeah, it is honestly all about the right opportunities because sometimes you're just not exposed, right? Like for better or for worse, your parents might have not understood the value of it. Your society kind of knows what it enforces on you because it's worked for many centuries. Um, so you're really trying to open up a new way of thinking, and that's always very hard, I think.
Yeah.
But it's also very powerful, right? And that's why those incentives, designing with the girls in mind and having them be part of the process. So they're generating the content that they're using,
Yes.
right? In terms of generative AIs, they have the incentives that they want to see because that makes sense within what they're trying. Like if I give someone $1,000, like nobody uses $1,000 in their village, right? Like what would they? There's no like it has to be incentivized in the right way. And that's so incredible that you're doing this. What are some of the things I just want you to leave our audience? What are some things like that you want us to know about how we can contribute? What are some of the ways that we can help, kind of bring the equality to the forefront?
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. We need to. So from let's go back to the elementary school education perspective. From education perspective, I think if there is research out there that really helps us understand how we can create the technology so that girls learn the best, the way they learn the best, maybe by doing something or through empathy, whatever triggers that center in their brain most, so that they can love what they are learning and they stay engaged. I would definitely like to hear from the audience if they know of research that is out there that can really help us, take it to that next level. Uh, Definitely, from technology perspective, there is already a lot of conversation around bias reduction and algorithmic equity and things like that. And I would definitely like the audience, if the ones who are in that role, to be mindful how they design their systems, their algorithms, and to help me and help all the other people, help you, Vicky, be there with, where, bring out the best. Give them the lift.
We all need a little lift, and then they'll be lifting us up, right? Like I feel like it goes in a circle, and we have to help each generation kind of make their own way in the world. Because to your point, we don't, with what we started the discussion today, 65% you said of the jobs, we don't even really know what they're going to look like for these girls.
Yes.
And how do we prepare them? Well, the only way is through these, right, generative AI, hopefully learning experiences and interacting with technology that will prepare them for whatever's coming.
Yes, and it's a huge economic, benefit for the nation or for the world, because we are looking at hundreds of trillions of dollars of money that would actually go untapped if these girls are not ready when they're, like, 20 years old.
Yeah. And in order to be ready, they have to start now.
They have to start now. Yeah.
How incredible that is. Well, Dr. Singh, I'm impressed by you.
Thank
It's
you.
incredible what you've done, and the work that you are going to do. I know it's going to be pretty amazing. I just appreciate this time, and just bringing the awareness, I think, is such an amazing start, right? You don't know who's going to listen to this, and they're going to bring this to their village in India, and they're going to make a difference as well. So that's what we're all about here. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time, and thanks for being on this video podcast.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you so much. Talk to you again.
Thanks. Bye.